Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, my number 4 is a game called Saturn 9 on the Xbox 360. It is an indie game, and I downloaded it because it's a brand new indie game, and Saturn 9 reminds me of Saturn 3. Have you ever seen Saturn 3?
No.
One of the worst films ever made, Kirk Douglas, but I saw it at a young age, so I absolutely love it. It's really, really actually pretty good. It's quite slight, but try the trial, basically. It's a first-person shooter. No, it's not a first-person shooter. It's a first-person game that is capitalising on the success of White Noise and White Noise Online. There is a real hunger for horror games on Xbox. I'm surprised that there's a real community of people who love those. Love that style of game on Xbox especially. I didn't realise at the time, but after I'd finished it, I realised that the guy who's made it's a one-man band called, I've forgotten. But the last game he made was Bulkhead, and before that he made Vampire Hunter FPS. Those two were really uninteresting kind of stadium shooters that were filled with bots, and then there was a multiplayer mode. I mean, it was just that they were functional, but they had nothing of interest. This is much more interesting, and you can see it from the trial. You arrive on a space station, and you're trying to solve a mystery of what happened because the crew are all dead, and it's just really, there's some neat puzzles, there's some very, very understated shocks in it. You get a sense of basically the first thing you do is you find some audio logs, and it's a multinational crew all reading this sort of very, very mundane stuff about what they've been doing with it. There's a Scottish woman and there's 2 American blokes, and you're just like, wow, this is actually well acted and reasonably well written, which is a real surprise. And the longer it goes on, I should say the longer it goes on, if there's one issue with it, it is very slight. I mean, you can probably complete the whole thing in considerably less than an hour. I reckon you could do it in about 40 minutes.
Oh, right.
But for 80 Microsoft points, I kind of like the fact that I started it and then I finished it, and I was entertained throughout. There's some really cool things in it. I don't want to spoil any of them because there are nods to one of my favourite games of all time, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. There's some just really nice moments, some really nice puzzles in them. Very simple, it's very small. The only disappointment is that the final level is basically Slender, where you have to find these 5 audio logs and then get the hell out of the airlock. But it's not like Slender in the fact that you're always, if you see something, you can get away from it. Whereas Slenderman's kind of just, it'll spring out on you out of nowhere, and it's cheap and shit.
Cheap twat.
Yeah. The frame rate is not massively consistent. It's very, very basic. But the frame rate dropping doesn't really distract because it's not a fast-paced game or anything like that. And there are some scripted sequences. I mean, it's just really inventive. It's an indie developer who's made stuff that was not particularly exciting, stepping up. And if you're a fan of those sort of horror games, this is really, really not a bad one at all. I was quite surprised. It's Saturn 9. It's worth a look.
All right. Yeah, I might check that out.
Yeah, I mean, some people. I mean, there's games like Mount Your Friends and One Finger Death Punch and stuff that aim to offer you as much content as possible, and that's great. But I love the fact that 80 Microsoft points is nothing, and you get a vaguely cinematic experience for about 40-50 minutes, and then it's over. And yeah, I'm really impressive, actually.